Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'd like to take you through a diagnostic approach to understanding what the issues are and what it's going to take to repair a level line fishing reel. And we're going to use the Penn 330 GT1 as the example. Now this reel came into my shop and well, it's got a couple of issues here. We've got some broken pieces on the reel tie down, but that's not an issue that's going to stop the reel from performing. But what you'll notice is that the line guide itself is missing. There's a wire loop that would normally come above the bar here, and this line guide will travel back and forth to level wind the reel. Well, in this case, that's not happening, and we want to go on to understand why it's not happening, kind of speculate on what caused the damage to the wire piece here, and show you how to diagnose your reel so that if you have an issue similar to this, you'll be able to buy the right pieces and parts and not leave any that you have to go back and reorder, or not order parts that are not needed. So if you enjoy these kinds of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, I want to suggest that you use the notification feature to see when I'm posting. I post frequently. And well, you'll be able to make a determination as to whether it's a video you want to watch. Today it's a ocean-going saltwater reel. Tomorrow it might be a low-profile bait caster, and then maybe a vintage spinning reel. It could be all kinds of things. And that's one of the things I like about this, is I basically show you all of the reels that come into my shop, and well, whatever's in that week, we select some for videos and we go do them, and it's quite a mix. All right, so the first thing we want to see is it just that this piece is broken and that the level line features are working, or is it that there's something more to it than just that? So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the handle and we're going to look at the worm gear to see if that's turning as well. First want to engage the reel. Well, that's not turning. Okay, well, that can lead me to speculation that, well, that's not turning, so this is not moving back and forth. And maybe I'll speculate that the damage to this was actually self-imposed damage, that it wasn't the result of maybe getting caught in a snag or that. My guess is there's two wire pins that come up on top, and somebody probably said, well, the line guide's not working, but I can still use the reel because the reel is turning. But that's getting in the way of me using the reel, so maybe they just took a pliers and pulled the two wire pieces out and left that there. I guess that's something that you could do to be expeditious about it, but it's not going to fix the problem. Well, what is the problem, and how do we fix that? Well, we want to do a couple of things. We want to start, let's look at the pawl. That's the little cylinder piece that's underneath. And we're going to see, is it the pawl that failed? Well, the pawl it's kind of caked in grease. It's certainly, it's stuck in, kind of stuck in the case. It's very dry, but we'll replace that pawl when I go to service this reel. But it's not that the pawl jammed in the worm gear. That wouldn't be it, and we'll leave that behind. So we really have to look underneath then and understand what's going on in the line drive itself. Well, if you have questions on this while I'm taking these exterior screws out, leave them in the comment section, and I will try to answer those for you, whether it's a line guide problem or maybe you're working on some other kind of fishing reel and you've come in with a problem. If you leave it in the comment section, I do try to answer those. Most of the time it's in the morning before I get in the shop, and I'll try and get you back on track. The whole idea of this channel is to teach you to do it yourself, fix your own reels and keep them going. So if you're stuck, I'll try to help you out. All right, there's 5 screws that actually hold the side case in. And the first thing we want to find out is what side of the reel is driving the worm gear. Well, I know the answer to that. I've worked on this reel. But if you don't know the answer to it, you want to check, because it's going to have an effect on where you go next to look. We saw when we turned the reel that the line guide did not drive. That is, it wasn't turning the worm gear. So if it's a worm gear that's driven on the drive side of the reel, like several reels are, you'll notice when you go into casting mode that the line guide does not move. It's stationary, and it's driven off the main gear. So you want to see, is that where I need to look or not? Well, here's the back end of your worm gear, and that doesn't have a gear on it, so it's not being driven from the gear side of the reel. So next up, then you want to check your spool by removing that and looking inside to find out what's going on. Well, I hope this shows up on the camera. I think it will. But you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of white teeth at the bottom of this channel here. I hope you can see that. Right there with the pointer, you'll see that there's several teeth. What's happened here is common in these kinds of reels. In this reel, it uses a plastic worm idler gear to interface with the metal worm gear. And you can see right where they interface, hopefully you can see that, right where they interface up here, there's a void. Those teeth were chipped out. Well, how does that happen? Well, it happens when somebody is caught up in a snag, usually, and they try and power out of the snag. That is, they try to crank the reel to turn out of the snag. Well, this is the fail-safe. A lot of people say, well, why do they make it in plastic? Well, it's a fail-safe. And it's a fail-safe because if you had that as metal, you could wreck a whole bunch of parts rather than the $2 idler gear part. What's the problem with that? Well, later in life, when those parts aren't available, the whole reel kind of goes away. Somebody just sent me a note, where can I find the idler gear for a Daiwa 20H? Well, that's a 25-year-old reel. You can't. It's not in distribution anymore. Very difficult to find the pieces and parts except in the used market. But that's built in as a fail-safe there. Okay, so we can see, if I can turn this, we can see the void right here, as well as the broken teeth. There's a void right there, whereas there's several teeth that are missing. And that's why when it gets to that side, it can't turn the worm gear. Well, let's take it where the teeth are and see if it's turning. Well, now it is. You can see slight movement there with the way I'm turning with my hand, but the worm gear is turning, so it's not the worm gear issue. If you thought it was the worm gear issue, this is kind of an interesting reel because it has this trim ring here, and everybody thinks that, well, the trim ring is going to open up the other side plate. It doesn't. Kind of an odd design here, but it's a full frame, single piece frame till you get to that gear side where all the action is. But we'll take this off, show you what's going on here. This is a US made Penn GT1 330. This is right in the transition period. So Penn went to a GT2 when they transitioned the reel manufacturer to China around 2005. And that's why it was named GT2. So you got to watch it. If it doesn't say made in the US, it's not made in the US. This is all you have under this side plate cover here. You have the metal exposed worm gear, and you want to look at that because if these teeth, the white teeth broke off, they could often jam in the teeth of the metal gear. And if you don't do this, you might replace that idler gear only to find out that you've got to skip, and that's because you've got a broken tooth lodged in one of these little crevices here on it. Well, if we just ran out right now and we bought the idler gear, your reel wouldn't work. And why is that? Well, because there's another part that you need to check in your diagnosis. That diagnosis part is the spool. The idler gear is going to turn the worm gear, but something's got to turn the idler gear, and that's the spool. The spool is going to come in here, and on the back end of the spool there's another plastic gear. It's got the click ratchet for the first part of it. That's the click ratchet, but it's also got a drive gear on there that's going to turn the plastic one. Well, I hope you can see this. That is mashed down, and maybe some of the broken pieces have actually come from that's lighting in the frame there. But this gear needs to be replaced as well. So you did a look on a couple of things here to diagnose the problem. Let's just go over that, and we'll talk about the replacement then. So the first thing you did was you had the reel fully assembled and you turned it, and you found out that the worm gear was not turning. You checked the pawl and you said, well, the pawl is worn, but that's not the cause. It's not jamming the worm gear from that perspective. We took off the gear side plate, looked at the idler gear next, found out that there's all kinds of chipped and broken teeth in here that have come from that idler gear. And those chipped teeth are the reason why it can't turn the worm gear. So we took off the side plate here to check the drive of the worm gear to make sure that there weren't any pieces and parts broken in there. And then we went upstream and we checked the last part of the drive system, which is the spool gear. We found out that they're jammed up as well. So you really have to do a couple of things to get this back. You need to buy the spool gear, the idler gear, a new pawl, and a new arm, because, well, that was taken out there so you don't have the line guide arm to control the lay of the line. So 4 pieces are needed in order to repair this reel. I'm going to order those, and we're going to restore the line guide function to that. In the meantime, I did want to show you how to diagnose that problem. It's a kind of a universal process for any line guide reel, but it's specific to this one, the issues that we found here. And we'll get this one going again. We'll give this reel a second chance. I hope you've enjoyed that. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please enjoy the hobby or the art of reel repair. Have a great day. Please stay safe and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.